everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. This is our final session, our Café con Leche session, where we will have, and I'm going to make a correction. I said our Latino lieutenant governors.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us?
No.
You can't hear me, Alex?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh wait, I know.
You're a panel, yeah. Okay. Just a quick correction. I said Latino lieutenant governors, and they're actually deputy governors. My apologies. It's been a long day. It's been a long week.
I turned my volume off because I was on a phone call.
No worries. I see that our deputy governor Flores has signed on. Sylvia, do you want to give some brief remarks introducing Deputy Governor Flores, please?
Okay, are we ready to start?
Let's do it.
All right, well, welcome everybody and welcome back. We're so glad those of you that have stayed with us since 9 o'clock. I really want to again thank and compliment all the planning team to put together this virtual Latino Unity Day. I have learned a lot listening in. And to close out our session, we're so pleased that we have two of our friends and allies who are sitting in unprecedented seats as deputy governors of the state of Illinois. I assume everyone knows, but in case you don't, there are 4 deputy governors under our current governor. And one of them is Jessie Reese, who is deputy governor for education. And the other is Sol Flores, who is our deputy governor for health and human services. We are so thankful that they are great friends and allies to the Latino community and have both put in tremendous sweat equity to improving the lives of countless Illinoisans, including our Latino community, even before having sat in the seats that they sit in. And anyone who knows Sol knows that there is no one else like her. Both her energy, her intellect, her passion, and her commitment. So it's my pleasure to introduce Deputy Governor Sol Flores to share with us some of her insights and perspective, given the seat that she's now sitting in. Sol?
Thank you, Sylvia. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, thank you to everyone. Thank you for inviting me here and all the partners that worked on putting this together. I've worked with Sylvia and many of you, of our friends out there, attending the Latino Unity Days in Springfield over the last, 15 years that we've been in the work, and then was so excited when we joined the Pritzker administration that we got to have a voice in helping to manage how the governor shows up for Latino Unity Day. And so I was, so thrilled in 2019 when we filled that governor's mansion with Latino leaders talking directly to the governor, making recommendations and having him critically listen to understand what are the things that shape our landscape and make a difference in the lives of Latino families and communities every day. And obviously could not do it last year because of the pandemic. We're so happy to be here with you today and looking forward as we hopefully are, getting to our last year of pandemic, that we will be together again next year and into the future again. So just want to say thank you for joining and thank you for having me here today. As you all have been, I'm sure, talking throughout the day, and many of you with your own missions and as leaders in your work understand that frontline healthcare workers during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic were Latinos, as well as many of our essential workers, those working at grocery stores, making deliveries, keeping our areas safe and clean. We're all Illinois Latinos. And we recognize how COVID-19 and how the pandemic has disproportionately impacted the Latino community, both from the perspective of the loss of income, those that have become sick, and those that have died. When we look at the statistics today, we know that Latinos are twice as likely as whites to die African Americans, 1.5 times as likely as whites to die. And so as we think about the continued work that has to be done to save our community during this pandemic, we know a focus on equitable distribution of vaccines and continued education from trusted messengers to the Latino community, understanding how to what is important to know about the virus, how you get it, what it means, how you can protect yourself, and all the things, including the vaccine, right, that are needed to protect ourselves. I wanted to share a few highlights with you all today of some of the things that we're really proud of. We've done a lot of work over the last two, almost and a half years of this administration, but we don't have a lot of time. I know I just have a few minutes, but I wanted to share a couple of things that we're really excited about that have gotten off the ground or that are closely getting off the ground in the near future that will really impact the Latino community. So the first one that I wanted to focus on was around health and the work that we're doing to increase health benefits for Latinos in our state. And the first one is a focus on immigrant seniors. And so for those of you who don't know, Illinois is the first state in the country to operate a Medicaid-like state-funded program for immigrant seniors age 65 and over, who are otherwise ineligible for Medicaid because of their immigration status. So our administration worked very closely with advocates, maybe some of you who are on the call today, and the governor was proud to sign this legislation and put the program into place. I want to share with all of you, it became live in December 2020, and in just 5 months, we have had 5,125 immigrants now receive coverage. And that was just, at the end of April 2021. Of those 5,100 immigrants, 63% of them have self-identified as being Latino, Latina, Latinx. And so we know the disproportionate number of folks who will be impacted by this are from the Latino community. We have spent $35 million, or we have received, $35 million in medical claims for this group. That includes $16 million in hospital inpatient services, $11 million in hospital outpatient services, $3 million in pharmacy, and $4 million in a broad package of other services. So my point is that millions of dollars are now going to support some of our most vulnerable folks who are here, who have made contributions to our local economy, and who now we want to ensure have equitable access to healthcare. To find out more about this particular program, you can go to the Illinois Department of Human Services. And just one last thing about this, in terms of demographics, as you may want to know this, 86% of the current enrollees live in Cook and the Collier counties, which is, we know, where the majority of our Latino communities are in Illinois. But we want to ensure to get the word out to all immigrants across the state of Illinois that this program is available for them. Another one I just want to touch on briefly, which we're also very excited about, is that on April 12th this year, Illinois became the first state in the country to receive federal approval and federal matching dollars to extend Medicaid benefits through 12 months of postpartum. And so what this means is, up until now, women for certain income qualifications could only receive 3 months of postpartum care. And for those of you who are working with pregnant women and understand the importance of supporting mothers for longer than 3 months, this is what we know helps to heal mothers, to ensure that we can reduce maternal mortality and provide mom and family with the supports necessary to ensure that infant, baby are growing and healthy. In Illinois, 36% of pregnant women enrolled in Medicaid or our CHIP coverage identify as being Latina. So again, more than 1/3 of the women in this program will be impacted are Latina. And so we're so excited for what this means in ensuring that Latina mothers and their children can be as healthy as possible. While we're continuing to wait for, in addition to this, Illinois is actively working with our federal partners to receive approval for federal matching dollars to extend Medicaid benefits through 12 months postpartum for immigrants in Medicaid's 5-year waiting period and for undocumented immigrants with continuous eligibility. So that's a lot of technical talk. Again, you can go to the Illinois Department of Public Health to learn more about this, as well as the Illinois Department of Health and Family Services, which has been the lead agency working on this, but closely with DPH as we're working to reduce infant and maternal mortality here in the state of Illinois. And the last thing before I sign off, Sylvia, is I'd like to share with all of you the work that we are doing, have been doing, and are going to significantly expand because of our federal rental assistance, and that is the work that we are doing with the Illinois Housing Development Authority and the Illinois Department of Human Services on providing rental assistance to those that have been impacted by COVID. As you all know, Illinois is set to receive $1.2 billion in funds that will be available for rental assistance, and another $450 million available for mortgage assistance, and another near $300 million available for water and gas and electric utility assistance. Big dates for you all to know is that on May 17th, so in just a short time here, the Illinois Housing Development Authority will open a portal. We will keep it open for 1 month. And that is the portal where landlords and tenants can go on and apply for rental assistance. I won't go over all the details with you. We will share those with our partners here that have put together Latino Unity Day so that they can share all of this with you. We have over 60 organizations around the state that have received grants from IDA, who will also be providing outreach, marketing, helping individuals in community apply for these dollars. There will be a lot of information that comes across via media. And so don't worry if you didn't get it all today. There will be a lot of information that comes to you. You can also go directly to the IDA website to learn more about this. In addition to the work that IDA is doing, the Illinois Department of Human Services is also continuing to provide rental assistance through our DHS welcoming centers. Again, we know that this is a way to getting to immigrant, refugee, and undocumented families who may not be eligible for other public entitlement programs. And the work through the welcoming centers does not require any proof of citizenship. And these welcoming centers are operated in partnership with trusted messengers in communities throughout the state of Illinois. There will be over $100 million that flows through the welcoming centers for rental assistance. And so we encourage you to help us push folks to the IDA portal, push folks to the DHS welcoming center, their rent paid for, both as landlords, small landlords who perhaps have not had rent paid and need those funds to make their buildings and families whole. And of course, most importantly, our tenants to make sure that they are good as well. And so with that, I'll pause and say that we continue to look forward to working with you all and have a great rest of your Latino Unity Day. Thanks, Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Sol. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. And for those of you that want more detail, all of this is being recorded. And we did have a session earlier today which gave more detail on the rental and mortgage assistance programs that'll be available. So now let me take this moment as we begin to close out Latino Unity Day to introduce Jessie Reese. As I mentioned, Jessie is our Deputy Governor for Education. Jessie, we thank you for taking the time, and know that for those of you that don't know, Jessie is an attorney by training, but has a long history of service, most primarily in the area of education, not having only served on the Illinois State Board of Education, the Chicago Public School Board of Education, but he was also interim CEO or superintendent of Chicago Public Schools for a stint. So he is now really heading to lead up all of our education systems in the state of Illinois, from literally birth now through college. So Jessie, again, thanks for taking the time. We appreciate you being here, and we'd love to hear what you have to share.
Thank you, Sylvia, and to be with you all on this Cinco de Mayo, on this Latino Unity Day, and thanks to Latino Policy Forum for again convening us all this year to focus well, not only on Cinco de Mayo or even the 16th of September, but on every day that we should focus on these issues because we are, in fact, a growing sizable component of our state, ever more so in the education sector, where now Latino students, I was thinking about this, where when I was on the State Board of Ed and I left there in 2011, I think I want to say we just cracked about 20% or approaching 20% of the student population. And now we're approaching probably 27% of the student population in Illinois. And in fact, Illinois now is a majority minority school system, public school system in the state of our 1.9 million P to 12 students. And that's really astounding when you think about it, because the system isn't necessarily always structured to support the special needs of those students, especially our EL students or our first generation students who are going off to college. And since our portfolio covers truly, as Sylvia mentioned, from preschool through higher education, the entire continuum is important to my entire team that works with the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development, and that office in turn works with SOL agencies and SOL's portfolio, DHS and DCFS, as well as with the State Board of Education, because that's where the Early Childhood Block Grant resides, primarily for school-based preschool, and as well as the Illinois State Board of Education. And again, if nothing else, I will always be proud that I had a hand in making sure that the first Boricua ever to lead the Illinois State Board of Education, the first woman for that matter, Dr. Carmen Ayala is there, and obviously carries her experiences as a teacher, as a kindergarten teacher, as a bilingual educator, as a Latina, every single day. And she's there to serve every single one of those 1.9 million students. But Carmen never forgets those students who are English learners that need special services and special support and attention, and rightfully so. And then on to the Illinois Community College Board, where again, Latino students make up a sizable portion of community college students. And I'll get briefly into the pandemic issues, but that's a incredible system of 48 community colleges. One of those counts CPS, so the actual total number of community colleges in Illinois is greater than 48. And of course, we have Chancellor Juan Salgado leading that system. And then the Illinois Board of Higher Education and our 12 public universities, including UIC, which is a Hispanic serving institution, as well as Northeastern Illinois University. And then the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which makes sure that we are making all these great educational opportunities attainable and possible for students by making sure the financial wherewithal is there, because that is a barrier, particularly for first generation low income students, that it's great to have all these great educational options and opportunities, and fingers crossed, I do hope, and we should all be advocating. It's a little different in Illinois because most of our folks get it, at least in the districts where we live. Our representatives and senators definitely get it, but it would be wonderful to have free community college available to every high school student, if they so choose, that could be a possibility for them. So fingers crossed on the federal package that's in Congress now, and could make that a reality, as well as a number of other supports that could drastically change how we raise children and you know, our collective trajectory. So that's one that I know we're all watching, but I in particular am watching very carefully because universal childcare, that would impact my portfolio greatly in terms of preschool. And just think about the high quality childcare and preschool, that if every child is born with that advantage, particularly our Latino children, and who may not have English as their first language at home, you know, immigrant backgrounds and other challenges that you know, at times makes it more difficult for some of these students to become proficient at grade level upon entry, being ready for kindergarten, which gets you further along in the educational trajectory. So those are critical items happening in Congress that we should all be, again, I personally believe we should all be advocating for as Illinoisans, as Americans, that it will give every American a wonderful leg up, but particularly Latinos in our country. And so we were focusing on all this work when lo and behold, a pandemic came along last year, and we had to promptly move all learning to remote. Schools didn't close, they just closed in-person instruction, and that's, you know, from preschool through higher education. And for certain students we know, particularly Latino and African American students, it didn't always work so well. For some students it did. There were no universal statements you can make about this. For some students it worked okay, but for many Latino students it did not. And we know there have been some missed learning opportunities. And so with the federal support from the CARES Act back last spring, to CIRSA and ARPA, ESSERS, which contained ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. There are billions of dollars that are supporting our K-12 institutions in Illinois. Some of that is allocated to the state to put forth programs on, and Dr. Ayala, as well as our state's P20 Council, have taken the bull by the horns and are standing up 4 state-led initiatives, that being interim assessments that Dr. Ayala wants to provide to every single district, so we can see when students return to in-person instruction. It's my full expectations, 100% of our students should return in the fall. Many already are in some form. About 95% of our students now are receiving at least some form of hybrid instruction, but we really do need to have all our students back in person full time. And so that'll help their districts and their teachers assess where they're at, because we know that, again, there have been some missed opportunities. We'll also provide social emotional learning supports and mental health supports for our students as well as our teachers. And again, we know students, particularly from first generation low income backgrounds, have had more challenges, and they're going to have some social emotional supports that they need to get back on their educational trajectory. We'll also provide high impact tutoring, so they can have additional time on task with their learning that could have been lost by not having in-person instruction and not having the resources available to them when they go to a school Monday through Friday on a regular basis during the normal academic year. And finally, bridge programs. And typically we think of bridge programs as something we're going to do at the higher education, transitioning from high school to college, but we're also doing it on the front end of the spectrum, from preschool to kindergarten, because there's been a big drop off, and there's a sizable portion of our population that is of early childhood age. We're a very young community. Some of us not so much anymore, but it's generally a very young community. And so it's a concern that we saw a significant drop off in early childhood programs, and we need to get those folks back. So we'll be reaching out in English and Spanish and multiple other languages to make sure that we're communicating with families. It's safe, it's time to come back and get your students enrolled in these programs, and then bridging them on to make sure they're ready for kindergarten, because there was even a drop off in kindergarten grades. I suppose for some families it didn't make sense to have kindergartners try to do kindergarten remotely, and they held them back or redshirted them for a year. But we need to make sure that they do come back. And so that's going to be a big effort on bridging those children into our school systems this coming fall, and making sure that our high school students who may have had a disrupted junior and senior year of high school get the supports and the study skills necessary to make sure they hit the ground running when they hopefully go on to college or university. So those are the 4 state-led initiatives, and then putting out a guide that some of you may have seen the governor announced last March that also took into account some of our vulnerable populations that our P20 Council worked on our learning renewal efforts and trying to help districts, because they get the bulk of the funds. They get about 90% of the over $7.5 billion total federal dollars that have come to schools in the last 16 months. So they're going to get the bulk of those funds. For example, CPS gets over $2 billion in how they allocate those dollars, which is totally within their discretion and purview, and each of our 852 school boards in the state of Illinois. It's important, and that they also don't overlook those special populations like English learners and immigrant families, of the needs that they will have and the challenges that they have faced. And as we know, our community was one of the communities that suffered disproportionately in terms of loss of life because of this pandemic. And so there's been a lot of families that have suffered all kinds of trauma, not only the loss of loved ones and family members, but other trauma. And so we've got to be very cognizant of that when we're trying to support these students come back on learning. They have to be, have sound health, both physical and mental health, and address those needs as well. And we're hoping that the guide we put forward helps guide districts in making those decisions. And we'll continue to do that from our office, Sol and others in the governor's office, to make sure that our community is never overlooked and the needs are forefront. And again, it's given the numbers that we are a significant part of our educational system in our state, and thus as we go, the entire system goes. So it's in everyone's best interest that Latino students and Latino community is successful, because that will buoy the entire success of our state, given our population numbers. So those are some of the focus areas we've been working on. Affordability, fingers crossed for free community college, but we're still continuing to invest in MAP grants as well. It's been a difficult fiscal time, difficult pandemic budget year, but the governor still managed to find $28 million additional dollars to put toward MAP grants. And we know for low-income first-generation students, those grants are critical. And with the RISE Act now, undocumented students may also apply for those grants. And I'm very happy that the Illinois Student Assistance Commission has rolled out last year a separate application process. So they obviously can't fill out a FAFSA if you don't have a Social Security number, but that doesn't stop you from getting MAP grants. So that's a good thing. Obviously, we need more dollars in MAP grants and more work to be done.
Thank you so much, Jessie, for taking the time, and thank you so much, Sol. I really regret that we don't have time for Q&A. So we really want to thank you for your time. But if any of the participants do have particular questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get your responses. So as we wrap up this Latino Unity Day, we can see that there's a lot of effort and a lot of impact on the part of the state in terms of investment to deal with this moment of time that we're in, particularly as it impacts COVID. And to wrap us up, we're going to turn to one of the other people that's really been key to Latino Unity Day over the past many years. And I certainly always appreciate his inspiring messages. So I give you Alex Medina.
Well, thank you. I thank you so very much. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, you know, I've been paying attention. I've been listening to every single person that has presented, and I cannot help myself but to say how proud I feel and how honored I feel to hear from you and to take a look at your face and to see your eyes and the spark and the passion and the intensity, you know, to be able to appreciate the tapestry and the DNA of the Latino tribe. I am so honored and so excited and so pumped. I'm also very challenged as well. There are a couple of things that I'm going to mention during this I think Roberto is going to giving me about 2 minutes to wrap everything up, but that's okay. That's quite all right. Latino Unity Day. I'd like to propose that we call this a Latino Unity Summit, where the giants of the land come together, where the brilliant minds come together, where the kindred spirits come together, and the brave hearts come together, male and female alike. I am so proud. Many years ago, when I came to know Sylvia and Leila, right away I saw their spirit, and I called them out. You know, I called them out as mothers of the land. And just like her, there are like both of them. There are so many more. There are so many more that I so look forward to getting to know at a deeper level, at a greater level, because I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged, you know. There's gonna be a spark when two spirits come together, when two minds come together. And just imagine when the giants of the land in the state of Illinois that represent the Latino tribe come together, they create an explosion. And I want to be part of the explosion. I want to be part of the momentum, because just like you, many others consider ourselves as history makers. So the theme for this Latino Unity Day is contribuimos, contamos, valemos, contribuimos. Illinois, tell the story right. So yeah, we all have a story, but that's not the message. The message is Illinois, tell the story right, because I think that it has not been told fully right. It has not been transparently right. It has not been authentically right. But I think that one of the calls that we have as we summit this time around is to go to the banqueting table. I like to introduce this concept of a banqueting table where we have people like Jessie, like Sol, like Sylvia, like Leila, like Carlos Charneco, Jose Lopez, Maggie Rivera, and all these giants of the land to come together and take a seat at the banqueting table and reassess those individuals that are sitting at this banqueting table at the big house of the state of Illinois. Because at this banqueting table is where the meals are being passed out, meaning resources, by positions or people that hold these decision-making powers. I got so pumped and so excited when Sol was telling us about all of these access to resources. Well, at this banqueting table, now we have two high-caliber leaders sitting, making those significant decisions and representing those needs, priorities, and the thing that makes us unique as a Latino people is a contributing political and economic power. We are becoming the voice of those that are not yet capable of coming to the banqueting table, but we need to represent them as such, and unapologetically call those people that have misappropriated a seat, they have misappropriated resources, and therefore misallocate seats and resources. So let me talk about something that quizás incomode a algunos, but that's okay, because we are engaging and learning on how to communicate and communicate well. There are people sitting in some chairs around this banqueting table that unfortunately are not responding to the needs of the Latino community. We need to engage people. We need to engage these people so that we may bring the data, we may bring the federal law, we may bring the state law and say, hey, a couple of years ago, I was bringing a message of Latinos being served crumbs. And when we are being served crumbs, there are end results that perhaps end up in fatalities. People, as we have learned from coming out of this pandemic, and we're still sort of coming out, and we're still experiencing the casualties, the fatalities of the absence of resources, of the dissemination of information to our Latino community. So we need to go back to this banqueting table and speak and engage these people in having this courageous conversation to analyze how these resources are being appropriated and allocated. Because we very well know, if you were part of the IASA report card, we very well know there is just a handful of state agencies that are representing the Latinos in their workforce. We're not getting into the leadership positions because their percentages are a whole lot smaller than the frontline workers. So when we take contracts and grants, Carlos Chaneco mentioned the many Latino businesses that are serving the state of Illinois and that are not being represented well. Well, we need to engage the powers that be, so that if we come across a kindred spirit, an authentic heart, a willing mind to accommodate and adjust, then let's engage. But if not, let me propose to us. Let me propose that we may reevaluate our strategy. We need to reevaluate our strategy between now and the next Latino Unity Day, so that we may see an increase of state employees, an increase of resources, an increase of leadership around the banqueting table. As our IASA president mentioned a little while ago, we're an agent of change. The Latino community is an agent of change. As an outcome of who we are, other minority groups benefit from it. So we are breaking ground. We are visionaries. We're powerful visionaries with a lifestyle of advocacy and commitment. So I want to encourage us in doing so. You see, part of our message is that we're trying to not only restore the human diversity in the state of Illinois, but we're trying to restore the human dignity. The human dignity that if we're not careful enough in the decisions that we sometimes make, we strip people away from their human dignity. I love to hear all of these new laws that are being passed to represent the immigrant community, because their human dignity is being restored. The fear is being chopped away. I thank you for those of you who are working in that sort of community. So yes, we're in the work of restoring the human diversity in the different realms, but also at the end of it all, we're trying to restore the human dignity for every single individual in the state of Illinois. So what happens between now and then? What happens between now and the next Latino Unity Day Summit, where the giants come back again and gather and the brilliant minds come together and strategize and dream and celebrate who we are and the many accomplishments that we have achieved? What happens? We need to continue coming together between now and then. I like to see it as a peak, as a summit, right? So we now go back to the valleys, inspired, motivated, charged up. So let's sustain and build up our unity. Let's reach out to the next generation, right? If we look back the last 40 years or so, there have been significant increments and increase in the Latino representation, and yes, and the resources that are being made available to us. So let's look forward and prepare the next 40 years. I get excited by the new generation of these brilliant minds and kindred spirits and brave hearts that are coming along. Well, let's bring them in. Let's bring them in and let's mentor them and let's invest in them so that we may anticipate what may be coming ahead. Perhaps in 4 years during presidential elections, there is much work being done around that, and we all know how that affected us deeply. The fear that was disseminated throughout the land, the terror that was disseminated throughout the land. So let's anticipate what is coming, not only for the next 4 years, the next 10 years, the 20 years, the 30 years, the 40 years. Some of you are reformers, not just transformers. Transformers are for a season, a specific time, and a specific place. Some of you are reformers. Some of you are for the next 40 years, 80 years, 120 years, and I celebrate and honor you. I celebrate and honor you. So those of you, whether you are going at it at a micro level, at a small scale, or a macro level, at a great, huge scale, I celebrate you as a human being, as a Latino, as a Latina. I celebrate my tribe. And I just want to wrap it up with the following words, we're not a people of fear. We're a people of power and courage and determination and tenacity. A people of wisdom. A people of commitment and sacrifice. Let me say just a little bit about sacrifice. What we are doing is not costless. There's a cost attached to it, but we have already factored it in. We have already factored it in. and we have resolved our minds to press on and to keep on breaking ground and to keep on building up on the foundation that has been already laid out by those that have come before. I'll wrap it up with this. I need to connect to my roots. I need to connect to my ancestry. This is my paternal grandmother, Alejandra Rodriguez Galvan. And this here are my parents. Salvador, mira qué bonitos. Por eso estoy bien guapo. Anyway, I have to remind myself day in and day out when I'm on a high peak or when I am in a low valley. I go back to my ancestry and then I think forward and I push forth, thinking about those that have come before me and those that are yet to come. We thank you. Roberto, we honor you. You have a brilliant, amazing mind. I like to be part of those meetings just to watch your mind, how it works. And that applies to every single one of you. I have this, at the end of the day, this is a labor of love. A labor of love. Through the power, the presence, and the purpose of love, we're restoring this human diversity and this human dignity back to the state of Illinois. I pray and I hope that we will be known as the state that brought love back to the state of Illinois, because we're a courageous, brave, brilliant, and intelligent people. Thank you so very much. God bless you.